Hey, my name is JoJo, and this is Behind Our Portraits. It is the podcast where we tear through the images of ourselves we show this world to uncover the truth about who we are, what we do, and how we see this life. Let's get it. If you like what you hear, like what you see, like, share, subscribe, leave a comment below. Let's just get into our conversation. All right, guys. For today's topic, we are going in quite deep. It is a topic that I am personally dealing with, and I feel like a good amount of people have been as well. We are going to talk about grief. So let's just do it. All right, so, when you think about grief, and if I'm referring to myself, you just think it's just this extreme sadness, which, that's kind of the definition of grief. And when we were in nursing school, we were taught the stages of grief. So we're looking at it through a very clinical way. And, you have, I'm sure majority of people have heard about the different stages of grief, which is depression, anger, denial, bargaining, and then, acceptance. And we've also always heard that these stages now do not come, they're obviously not done in order. And I can definitely attest to that. Most do not know, and it's not like I go around broadcasting every aspect of my life, but the end of last year, December 19th, my little brother, Junior, passed away. And, I've experienced grief before when my childhood friend, when T-Rose, had passed away. But in all honesty, I don't know if I actually even truly processed her passing. So when my brother passed, this grief, this feeling of grief seems very new to me, and very, 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 very personal. Initially, still, because it's only been 7 months. So I'm very, very, I think, early in the grieving process. But what encouraged me to try and have this conversation, in all honesty, this is probably more therapy for me than it is for anybody. But I'm hoping that through this conversation, those of us and you that are struggling with the same, idea and are going through the same battle, that, you're not alone. And I'm just going to voice my own experience, through this, and see what I come up with. But this grief, honestly, I have never been overwhelmed by such an emotion, in my life. I've been sad before, I've been, depressed before, but grief is such a strong, overwhelming feeling to have, especially when you have lost someone you love with your entire being. And I'm speaking on this, but I'm definitely not through the process. I'm not speaking from a place of I've figured it out and no, this is just me, honestly, in the middle of this process, trying to not avoid my feelings about being here. And it's rough. It's hard to still be in reality, still live life, while a piece of you is dead. Like it, and you also feel, dead in some way. Initially, when he had passed, um, I went through my own process, and if I can like kind of try and relate it to these stages, I mean, I was all over the place when, I got the call, um, and you go to the hospital and the doctors say what they say and say that there's nothing left that they can do. I have heard that phrase before. I have been in the room with people while that has been, said to them. So it's like, it's not a foreign sound, or a foreign like phrase, but like when it's said to me, to me and my family, it's unreal. It's unreal. So at first, and I would say like at first for like maybe like an hour, two, it was this complete denial, complete unbelief that my 13-year-old brother is not here, is not, I can't hear his voice. I won't see him, and it's that initial denial. I was just pacing through the hospital, praying like, this can't be it. God, this can't be it. This can't be life. But kind of quickly, and maybe this is just because of the clinical background or just kind of being in such an environment, what's done is done. And maybe, honestly, I feel like even God maybe had like his own portion to kind of calm me down and be like, it's done. This is reality. So that denial, left quite quickly. If we're talking about the other stages, as far as like anger, bargaining, honestly, I think the anger, the bargaining never appeared. Granted, I still have a whole bunch of this is a lifetime process, but I think the bargaining, the begging God, the begging, the the spiritual realm, begging angels, begging and being angry about the situation. Honestly, it's like in an instant when that denial leaves, for me at least, the bargaining, there was no point in bargaining. There was no point in being angry about the situation. It's kind of like what's done is done. And so I spent, after that and after we buried him, a good amount of my emotional state was in the stage of depression. And so I've been depressed before, right? Like, I mean, I've been depressed before, but this was, I don't know, this is different because the mourning on top of your sadness, and it's just so heavy. I did not know how to navigate any of my feelings. And I thank God that I have my family and I have my close friends that comforted me during those initial stages, because life was dull. You start to question a lot of things when something like that happens, when a child passes. And for me, while I was in this depressive state, I was questioning a lot of, it's like they say like survivor's guilt, where it's like, why do I get to be here? And, 13 years isn't long to live on this earth. Like, why? And, battling those thoughts, like just thinking about why, what does this mean? How is life even worth living now? And, it's also just this struggle because I'm watching my family grieve and watching my sisters, my dad, my mom, go through their own process, and their own grieving. And it just broke my heart. So initially I was really heavy in this depressive state. I didn't find interest in being out, being around people. Honestly, I tried. I cuz it's like you can't stay at home. At least that's like where my mental was going, just trying to grab from my my other season of depression, and like how did I manage it there. Like you try and pull from different places to make sense of the space you're in. And so that's what I was doing. I was like pulling from prior knowledge, from prior experiences, um, prior processes to try and function, because it's like I still have to go to work tomorrow. I still have to put on a smile. I still have to be, at least look like I'm a human being, right? And obviously, people were graceful, and those I knew gave me, patience and all those things. But my, I just couldn't find anything enjoyable. I I tried to be out. I tried to be around friends initially, because I think that's just where I felt safest. And just to try and inch myself back into feeling life again. But for a good amount of that time, I didn't feel human. There's nothing you could tell me, nothing you could say, nothing you could do. I was miserable, honestly. And it's hard, like, also because it's like I know I'm mourning, and I know that I'm mourning, but I also hate the fact that I am now in such a space where it's like I don't care about anything anymore, and I don't care about your feelings or I don't know. I became, I kind of had to be a little bit selfish in those moments. And honestly, yeah, I guess I could call it selfish, but I just like did not care about anybody else or anybody's feelings or thoughts about whatever. However, whatever their advice was trash. I just was honestly, I was actually quite irritated with anyone that tried to reason or make logical sense of this emotion in this space. It was hard because it's like I really wanted people around me, to maybe drown out the feeling, like the loss. But at the same time, I was like, I hate that there's so many people in my space, because none of you understand, none of you get it. I don't care about your kind words and wishes and prayers and love and your pot roast and whatever the case. Like I want my brother back. I want my brother back, and none of you can do that. So what's the point? And yeah, so I went through that first stage, which was we're 7 months in right now, so it was like maybe 3 months of kind of being there. And that was really rough. That was really rough. So as I kind of went on through my grieving process, eventually I did come to a space where I could be around people. I could, go to work and go to events and stuff, and feel myself. And I think part of the part, well, majority of the reason as to why I was even able to get to such a space was I prayed a lot for peace. I prayed a lot for peace of mind as I went through this. And I think that is, I know that not everyone is spiritual and not everyone, believes in the same higher power, but I prayed a lot to God. I prayed a lot. And if I'm being really personal about it, I fully expected this situation to tear me away from God. I expected, in a way, to be like, wow, God, you're really not with me. You're really not with my family. Like, is this is this how you show up? But it actually was quite the opposite. And I don't know how to explain it. I don't know if anybody else who has lost someone can attest to this or whatever the deal is, but there was an overwhelming sense of peace that came over, my heart. And when I, talked with my family about it as well, that's something that I think everyone had. Not necessarily, peace over the situation or like not necessarily like acceptance, but God, it is out of my control and it is in your hands, and I trust that He is in your hands. And so there was a peace that came that allowed me to have the strength to move on, to have the strength to get up and still pursue my own purpose in this on earth, And that peace was a very big help in pushing me to be comfortable enough to have a talk with myself and say, hey, although he has passed, you do not have to choose to die here, And that's obviously not what he would have wanted. Like, knowing my brother, he would be extremely, extremely sad to see us sad. And so it's just that's what kind of kept pushing me to want to live, want to have a full life. And so going along with the same question, like, so what do I do? How do I get through mourning or grieving the loss of someone I love or a relationship or an idea? And, that's a question I asked myself. And when I got to the place where I was able to kind of function, I'm like, okay, I realized very quickly that the way I mourn is not the way, my family, the rest of my family mourns. And, I was watching my sisters and my parents and my grandma, and each one of us had a very, very different way of mourning and grieving over the loss of my brother. And for example, like, I can't look at his pictures. I don't want to hear his voice right now. It's, I guess, just like a reiteration, a reminder of, the most beautiful thing I've lost. And so it's just hard for me in this space right now. But, on the other hand, there's my sisters or my sister that, she needs to see his face. She finds comfort in looking at his pictures and listening to his voice. And I just realized, like, it was really hard and frustrating to try and navigate that because, obviously, as like, mourning, everyone's grieving process, everyone's mourning process is different. It looks different. And you have to find your way of mourning the loss of mourning your loss. And that's healthy. All that to say, like, grieving, mourning, going through that stage is very, very healthy. And if you can, try to not avoid it, because that's where a lot of the healing really does come. Pain, of course, but healing does come in this process. And so, like I said, it was hard for me to look at his pictures, listen to his voice, and I was like, I need to find my own process for this. What does mourning look like for me? And so like I said, I can't look at his pictures or listen to his voice, but I was also like, I need to be able to still function. I still need to be able to pour into myself. I need to remember, that my brother is a very, very lively spirit, a very lively dude. And so just the thought of anything unhappy, knowing him, he would be vexed that we are crying or upset. It would break his heart. So, like, for me, it was just remembering those things about his personality, how sweet he was, how kind he was, how smart he was, how ingenuitive he was. And, creating this legacy of him in my head and holding on to this idea that yes, you're not here anymore, but you will live on, and you will live on in ways that you couldn't, I know that you can't do now, but I'm going to maintain this legacy of you. And for me, that's it. And, and wanting to seek people out or not even seek them out, but when I hear that someone has gone through something or is going through something, I'm making it now more adamant to like reach out to people, to remember people, to just do my due diligence to be your brother's keeper. And so mourning for me looks like picking up my bag and becoming a better human and living my life as full as possible. And yes, allowing space for the tears, allowing space for the sadness. And I think that's like the best advice my therapist gave me, is like, because I hate processes, and this grieving process is insane. It does take a toll on you as a person, and the people around you. And so naturally, when I hear, this is going to be a lifelong process, it makes my stomach turn, because I very much so want to have a timeline and say like, okay, in 2 years, I won't feel anything anymore. I won't be sad anymore. And that's not realistic. I have, in that process of learning how to mourn, I have come to accept and allow space for those moments of pain, of sadness, of, man, I'm great one day, but the next I don't know what I'm going to do, and I don't know why this has happened, and allowing myself to have grace, to take each day to take the day as it comes. And so that is my advice, is to take each day as it comes. What you lost is important to you. It's something that most people may not understand fully. And, you're entitled to your mourning. You're entitled to having your space or doing whatever it is that you need to do in that moment. And that's my other thing, is like, identify what you need. I think that was the hardest thing for me, because people would ask like, is there anything I could do for you? Is there anything I could do for you? And I would just be like, no, can you bring my brother back? Like, and it's, me being whatever, but it's like, identify what it is that you need. And that was really, really, really hard for me to figure out. I mean, it still is. I think it also fluctuates with the day. But generally, at least for me, I needed community. I needed the comfort of my friends and my family. I needed laughter. I needed a good distraction, and not just any distraction. Like, honestly, going to the clubs and going to day parties and all this stuff, they're distractions, but they were just not, in that space and time, was just not doing it for me. In fact, I was my social battery and my emotional battery were very, very low. So like, being in those situations and those spaces were just not, it was just not right for me. And I felt more drained than I did like anything pouring back into me. So I realized quickly that I can't just party it away. I can't just, dance it away or smile it away. I needed to cultivate an environment that felt safe for me. And that meant being around my closest friends and the people that I loved, and maybe just existing. I think the sweetest thing, the thing that I needed the most was maybe just not even words, just being in the space of someone that I loved and existing. And it's also hard, I am applauding my close friends and family, because a lot of the time you don't have the words, and you won't have the words. And it's hard. I can only imagine, obviously being on the other side, it's like, what do I even say to this person that's grieving? What could I bring? What value could I bring to this situation? And flipping back to me being on that side, the other side of it, and receiving, just you being there, just you being present and attentive, was so much more helpful than anything else. The prayers, the words, the kindness, the sometimes I've heard all the words. Sometimes I've ate all the chicken and pot roast and mashed potatoes that I can. And I just want to exist in the space of someone that I love. And that was enough. And it was very healing. And obviously everyone will have their different, what that means. And if you're struggling, when you're mourning like that, it's really hard to identify what it is you need. And I think that's your first job, when you can, is to figure out what it is. What do I need? Because people are going to ask, what do I need? And think about it beyond you can cook me dinner, you can whatever. Like, do you need space? Do you need constant attendance? Do you need someone to be by your side? Do you need someone to sleep over? Do you need someone to distract you, to take you to games, to take you to game nights, to, if you're the party person, take you to party? Do you need a trip? Whatever it is, identify what it is that you need. And try not to compare it to anybody else, especially if you're going through this type of process with someone else. Like I'm grieving with my family, and it's, it was really hard to go through my grieving process and not look at the grieving process of my other siblings or my parents and grandma and be like, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. Maybe I shouldn't get out of bed. Maybe I should stay, and it's hard. But everyone does what they need for themselves in that moment. And I think it's important that you identify what that is for you, and focus on healing you first. So the next step, when you've identified what it is that you need, how you want to mourn, I think the next step is allowing yourself to actually find peace, allowing yourself to find joy, and understanding the concept that joy does come in the morning. And even that is a play on words. Joy does come and through the morning. I think that was really hard. At least that was probably the hardest thing for me to do, because there's this guilt that comes with being happy or joyous in a tough situation. And I think anyone can identify with that. Like, if you lost your job and, you take a trip, there's going to be that person that's like, didn't you just lose your job? Like, why are you enjoying right now? And I think that is like one of the worst things that we do as a people in general, or like the worst concepts that we still have yet to throw away, is this, like, when you're sad, you need to stay sad and practically die and roll over and bury yourself. And it's like, each day is different. Each season is different. And I do not think we were created to stay in spaces like that for too long. I think it's not only dangerous, but it's not how we as spiritual beings should stay. I think that there's a lot of, it's just a negative space to stay in. I think that's one of the greatest gifts from God and from the world and from the earth itself, is just allowing, yes, there's going to be some sucky things that happen, but tomorrow is a new day. And tomorrow presents the opportunity of a joyous moment. And I think, especially in situations when you've lost someone, I think cling on to the idea that you have to find something to be happy about. You have to find a joy in something because it's going to be hard if you allow. I think it's easier to allow grief to consume you. And I think that's what it did for a while. It consumed me. And it was hard for me to allow myself to be happy. So much so to the point where it's like, if I smiled or if I laughed, this thought would come in my head like, why are you smiling? Why are you laughing? You just lost your brother. How insensitive are you to the situation? And then it's like, it's just, I just think it's such a unhealthy thing and space to be in for a constant period of time. And I think it is um, super unhealthy to not allow yourself to be happy and have moments of joy. And I think those moments of joy are not only are they blessings in that space and that time, it's like, it's so needed to remind you to continue to live. I think whenever I was with my friends and my family, and we just had moments where we were laughing and having a good time or watching home videos or things like that. And it was just like, this is what, although we've lost something, this is what it's about. It is about life. Life, this is the essence of life. You have to move on. You have to find joy. You have to love on what is still here. And even in that loss, appreciate the beauty of it and move on. And I think that's another bit of advice is find something you love in the season of loss. I know a lot of people are fond of like taking trips, and I'm kind of there. If I can, it's rejuvenating to my spirit to be in another environment. I think that's also, you know, should be added to that. If you need to change your environment, get out of the space that you're in, I think the first step to changing that mindset is changing your actual environment. So if it's you've been laying in bed and you've been thinking about this issue in bed in your house, and it's just creating this negative energy in your space. It's like, I think the best thing you can do, at least in the moment, is like, let me just get out and take a walk. And I think that's what my therapist had also advised is like, when you're feeling like that, the hardest thing to do is to want to get up and move around and or do something that is enjoyable to you. I think it's one of the last things that's on your mind because you don't feel like it. But I think when I started having more power over my emotions to be like, I know I don't feel like it, and I know I don't feel like getting up, and I know I don't feel like going to the gym, and I know I don't feel like hanging out with anybody or going to dance class or doing anything enjoyable because I'm gonna just sit in my mourning. I'm gonna just sit in this space because it's just like created this blanket of negativity around you. It's weirdly comforting. But once you realize like that is so weird, you want to like push yourself to get up and at least just find a different space. Just find a different space. So all that to be said, even if you can't right now, get up, go out, be out, talk with people, be super social. If it means just changing your environment and getting up and taking a walk or going to your favorite coffee shop or restaurant and just being by yourself, if that's what you need, or going to your friend's house. I think that's the thing that I did a lot is because I couldn't stay home. I didn't want to stay home. I just I didn't feel comfortable being alone and staying home. So I would go to my friends' houses and kind of relax with them and chill with them. And they do a great job of talking with me and distracting me because most of the time I'd talked my fool about the situation and how I felt. And, it just was like, I just kind of want to exist with you right now. And they understood that. And I love them so much for it. But yeah, find joy in this space. I think that is one of the most helpful things you can do for yourself as you move through this process. If you are grieving the loss of creativity or grieving the loss of a job, sometimes you need to take that time for yourself to just enjoy life again. Because I think when you go through losses like that, or situations where you feel like all is lost, it's like it's so easy to just kind of sit in a negative space and just exist there. Um, but I think the best thing you can do for yourself is, I don't know, to live your life, to find something to be happy about, because the world is going to definitely throw a lot of things at us that suck. I think that's like guaranteed. So when you have those moments of joy, when you have those moments of laughter, when you find those moments of happiness, I think it is essential that you grab onto them, that you hold on to those moments, because I mean, you just don't know what you're going to need from that experience in that moment. I just think it's like you already know it's guaranteed that you're going to be sad. But oh, here came this moment of joy. Let me seize it and roll with it and allow myself to be happy here now, because I need it. And so yeah, allow yourself to be happy. And it sounds weird because it's like you have to allow yourself, like give yourself permission, but it really is give yourself permission um, to be happy in a sad moment. It's easier to be sad in sad moments um, than it is to find joy. And I think that that's important to do. So to add on to, allowing yourself to find happiness and joy in these moments of sorrow, um, I think it is also important to remember that just because something dies, or a vision ends, or an idea doesn't work out, or a relationship doesn't work out, um, just because that thing dies doesn't mean you have to die as well with it. Um, it is a natural process of life, the concept of death, the concept of things ending, things running its course. And I know that majority of the time when we're mourning or when we're sad, we're mourning the potential of something. And I heard this in a sermon. Often we mourn the potential of what could have been, or what they should have been, or what they could have done, or what this idea could have turned into. But in reality, it may have just served its purpose. And it's hard to understand that, because what do you mean? Like, it served its purpose if it had all this potential to become something great. But that is kind of another concept that I am learning about or trying to understand, is that, yes, a lot of the times we mourn the potential of things. We are sad, mostly sad because this isn't what I wanted, but this could have been so much different. This could have turned out so much different. But the reality is it has served its purpose. It has run its course, and what needed to be learned or taken from the situation or taken from the life of this person is there for you to assess. And so I think that's another thing that I've been doing now, is looking back on his life, on his impact, and remembering him for who he is. And it's a beautiful person. He was a beautiful person, beautiful spirit. And there's so much that, even though he was my younger brother, there's so much that I've learned from him, just taking risks, wanting to be an entrepreneur. He always had these ideas of things, of who he wanted to be, and, finding the beauty in what was lost. And that takes time to do. It takes time to come to be in a space where you can sit down and remember how beautiful something was, even when you don't have it anymore, and appreciate it. And so just because he is gone doesn't mean that life ends. It doesn't mean that he and everything he brought to this world ends. it is my job now to remember this as a beautiful experience. And him being here has been a beautiful experience. It has been, he has added to a beautiful portion of my life. For 13 years, he has been my sunshine. And so I thank God for that experience, for allowing him to be in our lives and to give us so much joy. And it also just reminds me, as long as I'm living, as long as you're living, you do still have a purpose. And I know it's hard to get up and want to live and want to continue on, but it is true, as long as you're still living, you have a purpose, you have a job, you have so much to contribute to this world. And it just reminds you to take your job a little bit more seriously. At least for me, that's kind of what it's been. And so it's hard, but I just remember to take each day at a time, take each day as it is, and don't expect anything of myself. Don't put this pressure to be okay in 2 years or 2 months, and allow space to grieve and to be happy and to be excited about things again. And so I'll leave you with that. Grief sucks. Losing things suck. Losing people, ideas, being in situations where you just thought you wouldn't ever be in a million years. It's life changing. It really is. No matter how small, big, whatever the situation is, to you, it affects the course of your life and how you think about things. And it's important enough to take seriously. And so allow yourself grace. I say it a lot. It's a concept I say a lot, but it's still very hard for me to understand myself. But I am learning that grieving is giving yourself grace, is allowing yourself the space to process your anger, your doubt, all these feelings. Taking that time, and it's important. So if you are struggling, if you are in a place where even if even if something happened maybe 4 or 5 years ago and you haven't yet processed it, you need that time and space to process it. Take the time. Allow yourself the space to grieve that thing and allow healing to come. I used to think it was cliche. They say mourn and it'll bring you healing, but mourn how you mourn. Grieve, cry, scream, but allow yourself to feel that emotion and process it, and remember in the end that the joy does come in the morning, and eventually time will heal, and I will have learned from this situation, from this life, from this love, from this season. And one day I'll be grateful for it. One day I'll understand a little bit more than I do now. And so this is me. This is very early on in this process for me, but I figured I wouldn't wait until I figured it all out, because I don't think I'll figure it all out. So why not process it now? So thank you guys for allowing me to share my story and the legacy of my brother. And thank you to my friends and my family, thank you for your patience. Thank you for your love. Thank you for being there and saying what you could, being there while you could. And I pray that in your moment of need, I will be able to reciprocate just as you have. So, with that being said, guys, this is Behind Our Portraits, and I will see you next time.